Hello, all you cool cats and kittens out there. This is Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and welcome to episode 13 of Fully Endorsed. I'm here with my trusty co-pilot, Mr. Dillion McCandless.
You son of a bitch, Andres. I was gonna say the same goddamn thing.
Well, you know what? You can blame that fucking bitch, Carol fucking Baskins.
Carol Baskins.
And you haven't already guessed by now, if you haven't already seen the title of this goddamn video or seen the thumbnail and title card, we are here to talk about Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, and Madness. Or, for short, just simply Tiger King. Yes,
we may very well be the last people in the world to talk about Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, Madness.
Well, I guess technically you are the last person, because I technically already talked about Tiger King on my monthly, pseudo-monthly live stream series, Audio Synchronicity, with Brayden Connor, in which we were talking about Tiger King shortly after it became quite a, international phenomenon. Pretty much like 2 months ago. So, but still, I love this documentary, and so the fact that I could share this with you, and so that I can have a chance to talk about it again to an audience, to maybe people who weren't interested in my live stream series, hey, I'm down for that chance. So yeah, this is the Netflix documentary series that came out on March 20th, 2020. So, and it's pretty much took the world by storm, and it feels like it came out at the it couldn't have come out at a more perfect time than during this, COVID-19 pandemic situation where everyone is forced to stay home. People are using Netflix now more than ever, and so Netflix
really lucked out with this whole with the timing of this. I mean,
truly, yes.
I think this would have become a phenomenon regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But it got a lot of exposure very quickly, just because of how shut in everybody is.
Right, yeah, and even for me, like, when I first initially heard about this Tiger King stuff, it's like, I knew it was about a guy who owned tigers. That's all I knew. And it's like, oh, well, I don't want to watch this. This totally does not sound like something I would ever be interested in. And then I started seeing the memes. I started seeing, everybody referencing it, word of mouth. And when I heard about how crazy this story was and how it just gets more and more ludicrous as it goes on, it's like, okay, I guess I'll check it out and see what all the whole fuss is about. It was really like Double Toasted's review of it that really made me say, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
Right.
To pull Rick and Morty there. And so I pretty much binged through the whole series in 2 days. And I was just quickly absorbed into this. And it's very interesting looking at different people's differing opinions on this, because for some people it's a complete turnoff, where it's they're so disgusted by this story that they give up maybe 2 or 3 episodes in, maybe even the first episode. And I totally understand it. It's pretty much a show. It's a show that puts the spotlight on some really shitty people who do really shitty things to other people and animals, and that's totally not their thing. But for me, it's just the combination of everything going on just makes me go, I need to know more about this. It's pretty much like the Fire Festival documentary, which I think the people behind this also produced.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing, I think the reason that this got so big is that a lot of people were not aware of this whole sort of world of these exotic animal owners with these private zoos and private menageries.
Right.
This was a world that I was aware existed.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen it covered in this amount of detail. As far as I know, this is probably the best look at that world that I think you can get, while also being a ridiculous story full of ridiculous people, and also people who are barely in it that I really wish we could have seen more of, like that guy in Florida, the Hispanic guy, the Scarface dude.
Right, the guy who's apparently Scarface was based off of.
Yeah, you could have done this whole series about him, alone. Yeah, any
totally.
One of these people, any one of these people would have made for compelling television.
Right. I totally agree there. Yeah, there's just so many very interesting people with very large personalities here. And it's almost like this is like a battle of egos where it's not so much about the tigers, these people, it's about people who own tigers, but it's not so much about the tigers themselves. It's about them being able to come out on top as like the number one person in this business. Whether it is, well, mainly there are three people involved. There's Joe Exotic, who's essentially kind of like the main focus of this documentary series, who is this like gay, gun-toting, polyamorous, racist redneck who owns this giant zoo full of like 200 plus big cats. And it's funny because the number is always changing, I think. And so who wants to be the the number one zoo. You got Doc Antle, who is like a more he seemed at first he appears to be a nicer, more well-rounded individual who has his own zoo over in, was it Florida or where did he had his zoo?
No, he was somewhere on the East Coast. I want to say the Carolinas. I don't remember which Carolina. Somewhere over there.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, right here. Yeah, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's where his wildlife preserve is. And then in Florida, you have Carol fucking Baskins, who
that bitch,
who has her big cat rescue, and she's sort of like, she's built up to be the antagonist, whereas Doc Antle and Joe Exotic are two individuals who share like a common goal of trying to stop her from potentially ruining their business, seemingly for a just cause. But again, since this is a battle of egos, who knows what her ultimate goal is in all of this, given how it's portrayed in this documentary series.
First the tigers on tricks, then the world.
And yeah, I guess that's a big thing we should talk about, because in the weeks and months that followed the release of Tiger King, so many people have had their say on the documentary. So many people have gone into, have done some investigating, found out that there are a lot of facts that the documentary leaves out just for the sake of putting on a good show. And yeah, it's like this I feel like this documentary series does enough to entertain its audiences, but I guess that is going to be one of the biggest critiques of this documentary series going in, is that it doesn't provide you the full story. So as entertained as you are, it's always best to go in with what's the best way of saying this? It's to go in and not take everything at face value.
And to be fair, I don't think you could include everything without making it like twice as long as it already is. Because there's just so much to unpack. And I think they had to make a lot of choices about what they were going to highlight and what would make for the most entertainment value. Because I don't think you could have gone into every detail. There's just too much going on.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, as it is, it's a pretty hefty time investment. I mean, I woke up the morning of the day that I watched the show like, got to watch this thing for the show. I'll just, watch the first couple episodes now. And then 7 hours later, I was sitting there like, well, that was intriguing.
Yeah. So I know, like you because you came into this late, you pretty much already knew everything that the show. I'm assuming you've heard everything that had to do with this show from multiple like perspectives. I'm assuming.
I knew a lot of it. There were a few things that I didn't know about, but I knew most of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and even then, it was still. Did you find it still like, despite knowing that it left out a lot of information and may have potentially skewed the facts just to make characters look better or worse? Knowing all of that, were you still entertained by the end product?
Definitely, and I mean that's documentaries, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the game, really. And you have to boil real life down into a narrative, and real life doesn't really work that way. And so,
true.
No matter what you do, something is going to be lost in the shuffle. It's a little bit like adapting a book, except with even less plot. you know?
True, yeah. And I guess, like, for some, when you're trying to build a narrative, you gotta have your protagonist and you gotta have your antagonist. And given how Joe Exotic is easily the most interesting person of the three individuals, I can see why they want to try their best to make him the protagonist, despite how much of a horrible human being he is.
I don't know that there is a protagonist, really. I think it's a little bit of a Breaking Bad situation.
That's true, yeah. Everyone, like, with the exception of Meatloaf, like, the park employees that worked for Joe Exotic's zoo, which they all seem to be, like, decent individuals who just came from shitty paths in life. But, all the big guys, be it Joe Exotic, Doc Antle, Carol fucking Baskins,
That bitch
was it Jeff Lowe. All of these guys have, like, skeletons in their closets, or they're just, like, really, like, awful pieces of shit.
Yeah.
Pretty much every major player is a piece of shit.
I feel like Joe, despite, the severity of his crimes, he's the easiest one, I think, to identify with.
He's definitely, like, built up as an underdog.
Because Doc Antle, he seems, like you said, to be the reasonable one at first, but as they reveal more information, you realize that he's fucking insane.
He's a creepy sex pervert.
He's a creepy sex pervert cult leader type dude.
With a soul patch. And you should know you should never trust anyone with a soul patch.
He rides an elephant around town, like... he's
literally swinging his trunk left and right.
Who knows what his real name even is? He's got this weird, like, Hindu name, and he makes all the girls on his fucking zoo change their names into, like, weird shit. So I don't know. He's really out there. He's a bit of a space cadet. And then Carol Baskin is just a bitch. I hate her. I don't like. She's so unlikable. I don't agree with her stance on the issues at hand, like, at all. And we can talk about that as we get into the details here.
Sure.
I don't know. Joe just seems like, for what you see in the documentary, of course, again, knowing that a lot is left out, he just seems like the one that you can identify with the most. He seems the most like he's the closest to, like, a real human.
Despite his eccentricities.
Exactly. He's made up of personality traits that I have seen in other people, but in a combination that I've never seen before. You know
what? He's kind of like when, like, you have we were playing a video game and you have, like, a character creator, like, I don't know, like Saints Row, and so you go out of your way to make the most random character, the most ridiculous looking character imaginable, and just having him walk around amongst quote unquote normal looking individuals. I feel like Joe Exotic is like the result of God playing fucking around with the character creator mode. Yeah,
and he's also the most entertaining out of them. So he's they definitely made the right choice.
He's
focusing it on him.
His, like, larger than life personality.
Yeah, he's an entertainer. He does he does those web shows. He runs for public office, and in the year 2016, which is especially frightening.
Absolutely.
It's just insane.
Yeah, and given what happened in the 2016 election, I could honestly have imagined with the right amount of exposure, Joe Exotic could have went farther.
Listen, I used to watch the Cadmus arc in Justice League and think, Lex Luthor nobody would take a campaign by Lex Luthor seriously. And then 2016 happened. And now I feel like that idea has a lot more weight. Joe Exotic definitely almost was the governor of Oklahoma. It could have happened. If in a year that would have been the year. He probably would have been kicked out of office as soon as, like, all the embezzlement came out. But I think he had a sincere chance of winning.
Imagine, like, if he ran for office, like, the year this documentary came out, and that at that point everyone would have known who Joe Exotic was. He wouldn't need marketing team.
I mean, what other politician can you think of who hands out condoms with their face on it? I mean,
Yeah.
That is a platform that I can get behind.
You're gonna get fucked. You're gonna need protection.
Exactly. Didn't matter what I was doing, he'd come and put them balls in my face.
If you vote for me, I'll put my balls in your face. Big old nuggets of gold there.
I'm beginning to understand why he lost this election. Where do we start, Andres? That's the difficulty. God. Usually when we do an episode of this show, like we have a general idea of where to begin.
Well, I guess the best way to start is, since we already started talking about Joe Exotic, I think it's best to start with him and then work our way towards the other major players in this game. But the first thing I did want to mention, you brought up that you were unaware of this war, or you were slightly aware of this world of backyard zoos, or what do you call it? What are they called? Roadside zoos.
Yeah, I was aware of the statistic that they quote in the very first episode about how there are more tigers in captivity in America than there are in the wild right now.
Right. So I did want to briefly go over that. So like I mentioned before in my live stream, I was not aware of any of this at all. And this was mainly due to me growing up in San Diego, having lived in a same city that included the famous San Diego Zoo, which I believe is still considered to be like the biggest, if not the best zoo in the world. So it's like, I've always grew up with this, like, this quality of zoo, that the idea that there are these sort of like ghetto ass zoos out there that are not well run or have very poor conditions, with animals that are riddled with all sorts of health issues. I was completely unaware of that. I was blinded to this situation, and the idea knowing that there are more tigers and big cats in captivity than there are in the wild was truly an eye-opener for me. It was truly shocking to learn that. And
you were aware, of course, about that there are people who own exotic animals. I mean, everybody knows about that. Yeah. But it's like this industry.
I've seen The Hangover. I've seen when those guys, like Zach Galifianakis, stole Mike Tyson's tiger.
Right. So everybody knows about that, but I don't think everybody knows about this industry that exists. Right. And if you think about it, I mean, there are a lot of people that don't live near a zoo, and they're just as fascinated to see live animals as anybody else. And the closest thing they got is this fucking redneck over here who's like, hey, I got a fucking leopard out back behind my trailer, and then they'll go and look at it and pay money. I mean, it's a booming industry.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
People want to see these animals, and not everybody has easy access to quality zoos. So it makes a lot of sense in a capitalist society that this sort of thing would occur.
True. Especially when it comes to like kitten holding, where they're forcing these tigers, these big cats that normally produce like babies once a year. They force them to constantly keep breeding more and more kittens just so they can have these like petting sessions, which are their most lucrative business.
It's also a status thing. This goes back to like the ancient world. Kings would always have menageries full of exotic animals from across the world.
Right.
People have always been fascinated with collecting these animals and having them. It's a status thing. It denotes it did denote power and influence, but now any schmo could buy a fucking tiger, apparently.
But even then, it's like, I'm sure they would have this like feeling of power as they have ownership over this great animal that is capable of killing a man.
Exactly, and other people find it fascinating. Little pussy gets you a big lot of pussy.
Very true, my friend. Sad but true. So with within this world of roadside zoos, we have Joe Exotic, who has, who at the time of this documentary had the GW Zoo in where was he located in?
Somewhere in Oklahoma.
Right, it was Oklahoma, yeah. And so within Oklahoma, he has this big zoo. He tries to run the zoo as cheaply as possible because he's broke as shit. And so
I'm never going to financially recover from this.
Right. So he goes to out of his way to penny pinch anywhere possible. You know, the shocking thing was, like, he feeds not only the tigers and bears and lions, whatever. Not only does he feed his animals, but he also feeds his employees with expired meat from Walmart, donated to him by Walmart.
I think the way he gets away with that is, I don't think he technically is serving it to them. I think it's just they go to these expired meat trucks to get food for the animals.
True, yeah.
And then they take it home for themselves, you know.
Right, and that's only because he pays them, like, below minimum wage, and it's like, it's not enough to live off of, but he's provided, like, these, like, shitty, rundown, dirty, rat-infested trailers with no running water, and so...
Which sounds bad, but at least he's paying them something. Unlike that bitch in Florida who's like, I'm not paying anybody for animal care. They'll do that for free. And I'm like, you fucking bitch.
Right. Like, to skip ahead, yeah, her business, she brings in a lot of money, and I don't know if that money, I don't know where most of that money goes towards, but she mainly relies on volunteer workers to work on her wildlife preserve. And a lot of people in the documentary, and even in the bonus episode special, have described that her wildlife preserve is not all that much better than Joe's. So I'm thinking, if she's bringing in a large amount of profit, and that profit isn't going towards paying the employees, where does that profit go to? And she seems like a rather wealthy individual, at least her and her husband. I think her husband's a lawyer, so maybe that could be why, but I don't know how much of that money goes towards keeping her business afloat, but yeah,
it's not going to better cages. I can say we can see that much, you know. I mean, a large chunk of it is, you know, feeding the animals, because
yes,
I guarantee you she's not getting expired meat off of a food truck, you know.
Right.
She has to do everything above board.
Yep, and she's not doing the whole kitten petting business, you know, as she loves to flaunt over Doc Antle and Joe Exotic.
Yeah, and I just love the part where they find, like, the old videotapes of her from the 80s, when she was doing, like, cub breeding and, like, all that shit, all the shit that she, like, you know, antagonizes people for doing now.
Right.
That's, like, fucking hypocritical bitch. These animals shouldn't be in cages, and then behind her there's just rows of cages.
Apparently, she does have land for the tigers to freely run about at certain times of the day, but again, like, the documentary doesn't go into any of that at all, really. So I'm not sure how much time exactly do these tigers spend outside of these small cages.
Right.
But I guess going back to Joe Exotic, so yeah, he has these employees work under him under these horrible conditions, and the only reason why the workers would put up with any of this is because most of them are ex-convicts, or, you know, ex-felons who have just got out of prison, and they pretty much have, like, nowhere else to go. So Joe Exotic offers these desperate individuals to work under him for little to no pay, and, you know, living in these awful trailers. So I guess it's sort of like a pick your poison type of thing, whether or not you should be working with tigers for no money as a volunteer, or working for tigers under horrible living conditions. Right. And
I think the most fascinating piece of the puzzle, though, for me, with the Joe Exotic stuff, is his weird polyamorous gay relationship with those two dudes, neither of which are gay themselves.
Right.
And he's just, like, feeding them meth, basically.
Yeah. He himself is a creepy sex pervert, because it's like despite being old enough to be their dad, he preys upon like young, stupid, masculine, dudes with drug problems. And he's like, he's offering them meth in exchange for their love.
My favorite shit though is when they describe how he convinced the younger guy, because it's the stupidest shit you've ever heard in your life. He's like, "Do you watch porn?" And he's like,
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah," because he's a red-blooded American male. And he goes,
Yeah.
"Hey, well, when you're watching porn, do you like to watch the guy with the little dick slugging her, or do you like to watch the guy with the big dick?" And he's like, "The big dick, I guess." He's like, "Well, he ain't that straight." And this fucking idiot kid, and this fucking idiot kid,
you think he was?
This fucking idiot kid is like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way."
You know what?
Shit,
I swear.
That must be gay as hell. Like,
dude, I swear, I've heard another comedian use that exact line.
It's just so stupid.
I mean,
he fell for it.
I mean, I'm sure he was joking when he said that in the documentary, but still, the fact that he's trying to convince someone that they are gay.
That's all it takes to convince you? Like, he didn't even whip out like $100 bill or anything?
I'm
like,
sure
Jesus.
the meth played a huge part. The meth and the showering of gifts and the money. I'm sure a lot
Absolutely.
of that played a lot. I'm sure that played a huge part in it.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're right. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than what we saw. But that's definitely the way it was presented in the documentary. This guy just goes, "Well, you ain't that straight then." And this kid just goes, "Oh, got a point."
He's constantly going for these, young, impressionable individuals with perhaps, no real, goal in their lives. Maybe he got these, lost, aimless individuals. Maybe, I don't know if they finished high school. I don't know if they ever went to college. I kind of doubt it. But maybe these are these individuals with no perspectives in life. And it's like, hey, if I stick with this weirdo, I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how he convinced the first guy, Because neither of them are fucking gay. The first guy leaves him for the receptionist or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazier thing. Apparently, so we see three husbands in this documentary. We see, I'm trying to look through their names.
The first one was named John. The second guy, the younger guy, I never thought that way. He was Travis.
And the last guy was Dillion.
Yeah.
Funny
and
enough.
he's the only one who I think is actually gay.
Right. So with John and Finley, apparently, so these are the three husbands that are portrayed in Tiger King. However, apparently, this is one of the many, many things that, people will love to report. Not love, but people often report on in these sort of type of videos where it's like, here's 10 facts you don't know about Tiger King. Joe Exotic had 5 husbands total.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and we're counting down the 10 things you didn't know about Tiger King.
Here's the top 5 husbands of Tiger King.
Number 1,
Brian Ryan. I don't know how you read this name, but I think Brian, he went to, I want to say either the first or the second husband went to jail, and then the other husband died of a drug overdose. And then we reached John Finley, Travis Maldonado, and eventually Dylan Passage.
Right.
And the last husband, okay, wow, really? I'm looking at this. So he was married to Brian from 86 to 2001. And then right after he went to jail, potentially, or maybe he's the one that died of a drug overdose, J.C. Hartpence came in a year later, and they were married from 2002 to 2003. And then when he was out of the picture, John Finley came in 2003 to 2014. And then eventually, he left. And there was Travis Maldonado, who was there, 2015 until his unfortunate accidental suicide in 2017. And of course, that same year, Dylan came in. So each time he lost a husband, Joe Exotic immediately went back on the market and got himself a new man.
Yeah, Joe is definitely one of those people who can't be alone.
Right, right. He's in desperate need of companionship.
Yeah.
And,
not less than a year after he buried the one dude, he's inviting his mom to his next wedding.
Yeah. Dude, what he put Travis's mom through was so fucked up.
I mean, after that beautiful eulogy that he delivers, no sarcasm there in my voice. To then invite her to the next wedding just so that he can take a picture with her in it and put it online, like, see, his mom's okay with it, so everybody shut up.
Right, and then he never spoke to Travis's mom ever again after that.
Absolutely. I mean, need for attention in general. He has this weird underground music career that he's clearly not actually singing any of the songs.
He's pulling a Milli Vanilli that not even the documentary people were like fully sure of, and from what I understand, they didn't even credit. They like a lot of them were like, wait, is he actually singing this, or do you want to ask him? No, I ain't gonna ask him.
Yeah, see, I was thinking the same thing when I was watching the documentary. I was like, I don't think that's him, but it's a pretty standard, just country singer voice.
Yeah.
Like, this is the reason I don't like country music. They all sound the same to me.
It's like the South Park, stereotypical, or the typical, like, South Park, like, parody of country music. Where were you when those towers fell?
When I built the ladder to hell. Yeah.
I saw tiger. Now, the song itself has also become a meme in of itself.
And they took my gerb. Yeah, it's fucking...
That bitch Carol Baskin took my zoo.
Now I'm in fucking jail. So I pulled out my gun. No,
well, in that case, he has it. In the case of Joe Exotic,
yeah, he shoots a lot of shit.
He pulled out plenty of guns. Remember, it's like, this is my going to Tampa gun.
Yeah, I love how he's the gay redneck. It's such an interesting, like, straight up NRA, like, fucking. But fuck the feds.
There's so many amazing quotes from this show.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you were mentioning
technically fuck the feds.
So yeah, you mentioned that he craves attention, he craves companionship. He is I feel like with the little bit of backstory they gave us. Of his life growing up as a gay individual, growing up in a place as conservative as Oklahoma, I can see how, with the lack of like love and affection from his own family, that he would desire alternate forms of love and affection by any means necessary.
Somewhere along the line, he's discovered fucking tigers.
Yeah, as this again, the next thing on your top 10 list of things you don't know about Joe Exotic. Yes, he made taxidermied. He had stuffed tigers, dead tigers stuffed, and turned into sex toys for him and his husbands.
Does that count as bestiality, or is it just necrophilia?
I don't know, man. This raises way too many questions that I don't think I want to answer.
Is it either, really? Is it even necrophilia? Because it's not like he's fucking an untreated corpse. It's taxidermy, right? It's no different than if you made a sex toy and wrapped it in leather. Are you fucking a cow at that point? Like,
or like, I don't know, fucking a piece of furniture.
Yeah, I mean, it's an animate object at that point.
But you're looking at it like it's an animal at that point.
True, yeah.
What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Leave a comment down below.
Comment down below.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
You ever keep any of your taxidermy pets for sexual purposes?
So yeah,
are there skulls are there skulls buried in your yard?
Let us know in the comments down below. But I guess to move it on. But yeah, this guy, he's just constantly looking for like new partners, and then when he has a partner, he doesn't seem to treat them all that well outside of just like showering them with drugs and gifts and money. But beyond that,
showering them with drugs.
well, he does.
I know. I just love the imagery.
Just like it's just raining cocaine on them.
He's just sprinkling cocaine.
What was it? And oh yeah, there was that other meme where that one guy with who like pinches some salt and spreads it all over that like slab of meat. That's him sprinkling over drugs on them.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like he is rather abusive towards his partners. With poor Travis, he was brought, he was like pushed to the brink of insanity, it seemed, and the darkest, like most holy shit moment throughout the whole documentary for me was the part where, as I mentioned before, Travis committed like accidental suicide, which at first I didn't know was an accident. I thought he was just like offing himself in the most like fucked up way possible. It's like, hey, check this out. But no, apparently it's like he genuinely thought the gun was empty. He essentially Brandon Lee'd himself.
Yeah. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. No. I
God.
don't think it's coke.
Meth. Well, in this case, meth. Yeah, it was meth's a hell of a drug.
They don't say meth, but you look at John Finley's teeth,
or lack thereof.
Yeah, you look at this empty spaces where John Finley had teeth, and now he's got them fixed, and they look great.
Yes.
But at the time during the filming of the documentary, he shows up, no shirt, no teeth, no service, and he just. Yeah, it's meth. Let's be real, it's meth.
Yeah.
Oh God, all throughout that first episode, I was just waiting for them to say what state he was in. I was like, God, please don't let this be in Tennessee. Please don't let this be in fucking Tennessee.
Let me guess, Dylan, answer me this honestly, Dylan. Have you seen people like the ones in Tiger King in Tennessee?
Again, I recognize all these character traits, but it's a unique combination. So no, I've never seen anybody entirely like Joe Exotic.
No, I mean like just any of the people in Tiger King.
No, not in my area. I'm pretty sure there probably are some like roadside zoos around in Tennessee. I know there's an elephant sanctuary, but that's like above board. That's where the elephants go when they retire. Being like in zoos and circuses and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know elephants had a retirement plan, but there you are.
Yeah. It is.
I'm sure these people exist. I don't know them. I've avoided them.
Right. By doing the same thing that everybody else is doing right now, which is like just staying indoors and not socializing.
Yes, I've been social distancing for 26 years strong, and it's worked out pretty well so far.
That's how you do it. That's how your daddy did it. That's how America does it now, anyways.
That is how America does it, yeah. I'm just ahead of the curve.
And I guess, like, what's the next thing to talk about with Joe Exotic? Because it's like, there's so much to talk about, but then it's like, when you're trying to think about the next thing to move on to, your mind just draws a blank. But, I guess it's like, I guess the one thing I do want to mention is that he was, like, when Travis, like, accidentally killed himself, the holy shit moment really comes from his, Joe's campaign manager, and he was just there, and you see his full reaction watching like Travis kill himself, like just barely off screen. You know from the security camera, you see the flash, and you see him. He's covering his mouth, and you see him mouthing the words "What the fuck?" as he's just like his brain is like slowly processing what just happened in front of his eyes.
Slowly picks his jaw up off the floor. Right.
And I guess that does.
And probably the other guy's jaw not long after.
Oh,
and,
no! Oh boy. Yeah, I guess since I mentioned his campaign manager, yeah, you can also say that Joe's run for president of the United States in 2016 and then governor for Oklahoma in 2018, I feel like that's just another sign of him just wanting more attention. He says he's doing it as a promotional stunt to draw people into his zoo, which apparently did not work, but you can tell that he's just using that to feed his own ego, his enormous ego.
Wouldn't you like to just see the alternate timeline where Joe Exotic became president of the United States? Aren't you curious what that looks like? Aren't you curious what that looks like? He's got fucking tigers in the White House and shit. Meth everywhere. Well, I guess some real President Camacho shit.
I guess we would have the very first what do you call it? The first gentleman, after all, and it wouldn't be Bill Clinton.
Exactly. He could paint the White House like pink camo.
Or no, it'll just be in tiger stripe. It'll be like those like flashy blue tiger stripes, like his jacket.
Yeah. First thing he does is send Carol Baskins to the gulags.
Oh God.
She's his Rosie O'Donnell.
He'll send her to Guantanamo Bay.
He sends her to Guantanamo Bay, and then absorbs all her tigers into his organization.
He'll let loose all her tigers on the front lawn of the White House.
I think what we ought to do is release these tigers on the front lines of the next war. Just let them.
We should be breeding tiger soldiers, human tiger hybrids. You seen that canceled Jurassic Park shit? I want that.
Imagine like the body of a human, the head of a tiger. That would be
Guns.
the other guy. That would be the other guy goes badass. He goes fucking hot.
Essentially, she just wants an army of Tony the Tigers.
Yeah, and you know how the presidents always age while they're in office. So by the time his tenure is up, like he's just gone completely bald up top, but he still has the mullet in back.
Yeah, all business up front, party in the back.
Jeff Lowe is vice president.
Oh fuck! I was gonna say, wouldn't Doc Antle be his vice president?
He puts fuck the feds in charge of the FBI.
God. Yeah, so that's essentially Joe Exotic right there, and that's not even getting into his.
I'm just saying, if you're upset about the current administration, it could have been worse, actually.
Probably, yes.
As it turns out,
as if you didn't think America could have been made into any more of a joke than it is now.
As of right now, straight marriage is officially illegal.
Oh my God. I'm sure America isn't as straight as they think they is.
America, do you watch porn?
That's gonna be his first what do you call it, presidential presidential address.
He goes into the debates like with Hillary Clinton. It's like, you watch porn? Yeah. When you watch porn, do you like to see the guy with the big dick doing her? Or the guy with the little dick? I'm the big one, I guess. I guess you're not that straight.
but I'm a woman, sir.
Oh, shit.
Well, it's like, if it's a man, we're game on. But it's a woman, I can't compete with that.
I don't know what to do in this situation. I've never been put here. I probably should have named Jeb Bush as the example.
So anyways, the I guess the last thing is, like, the Netflix series doesn't really go into this, but apparently he is, he very huge racist. He says a lot of like racial slurs. Then they had to
What?
Yeah, I know, a dude in Oklahoma who's as redneck as you can be is racist.
This is as shocking as the time that the Duck Dynasty guy wasn't for gay marriage.
Right? And
just as shocking.
I find it very funny that it's like the guys behind the documentary, they're like, well, we figured he was racist only because he wasn't all that well educated, so we wanted to take the edit out the racist portions just to make him a bit more likable for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, like, oh, gee, is that why?
Do you think he'd be really conflicted about Black Panther? Like, I don't know if I should like this movie for the Panther or hate it for the Black.
He's like, I was lied. I thought the Black Panther was an animal. Instead, it was a bong. What did you say? The Black Panther was near? No, god dang it!
The sheriff is near. Andy Johnson is right.
Who was Andy Johnson? I'm sorry.
Oh no, in the movie in Blazing Saddles, one of the jokes in that like town meeting scene was that everybody's last name was Johnson.
Oh, okay. I forgot that gag.
It's like so-and-so Johnson was like they kept going around. So-and-so Johnson is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's name was something Johnson.
Yeah. Let's see. The other people, before moving on, I did want to say that the individuals who were working for him, like the guy with the prosthetic legs, or like the guy with the long blonde hair, or Sav, who was the trans man who lost his arm, like all of them seem like very interesting individuals, and I'm very glad that they got to have the spotlight in the bonus special, where they got to share like their side of the story, pretty much like unfiltered.
Yeah, like when they're like, "Hey, you want to we can either do reconstructive surgery or we can amputate your arm," and he's like, "Just fucking amputate it." I'm like, "You want to mull that over for a minute, man?"
Right? He's like, "Nope, I gotta do this I gotta do it for the Tigers, man." And so, like, I do have to wonder if it's like he said he did that because he knew that if he tried to keep his arm, then the zoo would probably go into financial ruin. But if he had his arm amputated, he'd go back to work and make the zoo look good again. So I'm wondering, was he doing that for Joe's sake, for his sake, or for the Tiger's sake? And he mentioned
based on his interview in the Joel McHale after show,
yeah, it
would appear that he was mostly in it for the Tigers.
It seems that way, yeah. But I couldn't help but imagine, like, if he was just sort of persuaded by Joe to do that for the Tigers when it was really for him.
That is a possibility. I guess we'll never know.
Yeah,
I don't care how much you love a tiger. If it were me and one bit off my arm, I'd be like, I will kill every tiger in the world. I would become the tiger equivalent of
the Punisher?
No, what's his name? Lon Chaney Jr. in Alligator People.
Oh, I'll get you, Tiger Man!
Just like I'd get any four-legged tiger.
Still, given what he decided to go through, I mean, I'll give him major props for that.
Yeah, dedicated. Shouldn't have any trouble finding a job, you know?
Right? Yes. It's like, how do you prove your dedication? Well, looks over at his missing limb.
Yeah. Would you be willing to pay an arm and a leg? It's funny you say that.
He removes his prosthetic. Whoop.
Which leg you want?
And let's see. I guess moving on to let's say Doc Antle. So Doc Antle, he is sort of like Joe Exotic's like mentor. He's like the guy he looks up to in terms of hosting a big nice zoo and being someone that everyone looks up to, and being someone who is also in a polyamorous relationship, as he apparently has it brings in a lot of young individuals, young women, and kind of raising them up and telling them that they ain't shit without him, and sort of like
I like how everyone they interview has a different estimation of how many women he has.
Yeah,
they're like, he's got like 3 wives. He's got 6 or 7 girlfriends. Like everybody.
One person throws out a different number. A shit.
I don't give a shit. I'm like, thank you. Me either. That's the right attitude to have in that situation.
Yeah. And you know what? I guess, like, I don't want to come down hard on polyamorous relationships. It's something I don't understand. But you know what? You do you. But what's really the messed up part here is, you know, the whole, like, psychological abuse that he apparently does on these women, as told by one of the women who managed to escape Doc Antle's grip and pretty much had her own tell-all moment when she explained how she was forced into these insane work conditions, pretty much worked all day and night, and she only agreed to having breast implants was so that she can actually have a couple days of sleep at the hospital. And at that point I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's like there's not that much. I mean, there's the part where it's like, you're leading me on. You want me to admit this is a cult. Well, you know, it's not a cult. It's these people can leave anytime they want. And then there are other people who are like, that's exactly what a person with a cult would say.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
He's, of the three major players, he's the one that we spend the least amount of time with.
Right.
Most of the time, he just pops up to provide commentary on the feud.
Right.
Between
Yeah, go ahead.
Between Joe and Carol.
Right, and he seems to be the one who's actively campaigning against Carol fucking Baskin's like Big Cat Act, where it's like trying to put a limit on people who are profiting off of child cub petting. And so he would show up to, like, I don't know, the to certain political meetings and would share these exotic animals with the politicians, trying to get on their good side before she has time to arrive.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely, like, actively campaigning against her. And I guess in the last moments of the documentary, I did like the part where he mentions how stupid it was of Joe to try to kill Carol Baskins, you know, going to early spoilers here, but it's like, he mentions, like, how can you, like, get someone to travel across the country to kill someone for $3,000, $5,000? Someone like that would cost $100,000.
Yeah, I'm not 100% convinced that guy was ever actually going to go kill her. I kind of think he took Joe's money with the intention of running with it, you know?
Right.
Which is exactly what he did. He ran off to, Georgia or something?
Right, and get drunk.
And just kept the money. And I think that might be what he was always planning to do. They never really say outright whether he had actually planned on going to Florida and killing Carol.
Right, like he mentioned to Jeff Lowe, it's like, I was never going to kill her, but, like, we can't really know. But
no, because he is.
But then it's like when he's in court, he's like, yeah, I was totally going to go kill her.
Because he is a scary dude, and so, yes. Like, could he kill someone? Definitely has. Where are the bodies? But was he going to, on this particular instance, Yana? There's not sufficient evidence to say either way.
Mm-hmm. But I guess yeah, go ahead.
Because he also didn't get in trouble for it. Right,
he didn't. He miraculously got away with it.
So I don't even think the feds were really sure whether he planned to go through with it or not.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, fuck the feds.
I guess the fact of the matter is, it's like Joe paid him to kill someone, and that's the thing that they want to focus on the most.
Right, because they wanted Joe.
Yes.
For some reason.
Right. And so, like, apparently at the very, very end of the documentary, that's mentioned that there was a raid on Doc Antle's preserve in December 2019, where they were investigating to find the supposed gas chambers where he would use to euthanize his tiger cubs that have grown too old for petting. And that was a big thing that was mentioned in the documentary, that for all these people, all these zoo owners who do profit off of cub petting. I mentioned kittens before. I should have said cubs. For people who do rely on cub petting, they produce so many cubs for these sort of financial opportunities that they cannot afford to keep all of them by the time they reach 12 weeks of age. At that point, they're too dangerous to be petted, and they're too expensive to keep all of them. So for these owners, they end up according to rumors, murder the majority or euthanize the majority of these tigers, which I thought, well, that was another shocking moment for me. And that was something that, was his name Tim Stark? Who is a guy who supplies animals to these individuals. He had
his own zoo somewhere. Yeah, somewhere up north.
And he had a monkey with him in most cases.
Yeah, so he's insane. Never have it. Don't own a monkey. I'm almost more cool with the tigers than owning a monkey.
So he mentioned, most of these people, they can't keep all the tigers, so they end up, murdering all of them, most of them. And yeah, that was another, shocking revelation for me personally, as someone who is new to this world. And, that was one of the things that they got Joe in for, on top of paying someone to kill Carol Baskins, but also,
in addition to the lovely taxidermy sex toy, they also found the skulls of dead tigers buried in his yard.
Right. And, and also, this is, again, more facts that you don't know about Joe Exotic outside the documentary. Apparently he's had a history of killing a lot of different kinds of animals, especially, the horse story. The horse story was very interesting to learn from Rick in the bonus special episode.
Right. At least the tigers got some fresh meat that day.
Right. Where, a woman was like, my horse is old, can you give him a nice send-off? Can you give him, a home to spend his last remaining years? And he's like, sure, I'll take care of this horse. And by the time she leaves, he shoots the horse dead and feeds him to the tigers.
If that's not a scene in the Nick Cage movie, I'm going to be very upset.
Right. That's another thing I do want to say. I'm very much so looking forward to the Nick Cage, I guess it's an 8-part or the 8-part, a Nick Cage Tiger King TV miniseries.
Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. I wonder who they'll cast as Carol fucking Baskins.
I can only imagine, man.
Meryl Streep is Carol
Baskins. My god! I bet she'll I'm not sure if she ever does TV, but I know she would definitely work her ass off to get another Oscar nomination, or I guess this would be an Emmy nomination.
Yeah.
Let's see. I guess the last person we can talk about is Carol Baskins, or Carol fucking Baskins, or that bitch down in Florida, or that bitch Carol Baskins.
All I want to say is Carol did
it. You genuinely think so?
I'm on Team Carol did it. I know that there are additional facts beyond the documentary that throw a little bit of doubt on that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I look into her eyes.
She's got them soulless eyes, like a doll's eyes.
Blackest eyes.
The blackest eyes.
The devil's eyes. And she seems like there might be multiple bodies.
God. You know what? Given this is not mentioned in the documentary. Again, more facts that they leave out. That her missing. Okay, so she has a missing husband, and she pretty much the moment he disappeared and was eventually declared dead, she got to have most of his money. Whereas if apparently they were on the verge of divorcing, and had they divorced, she would have come out with virtually nothing. So that leaves,
because he had all his money hidden places.
Right. And apparently they he wasn't rich before, but he was definitely rich as a result of the tiger business that he and her started. And so that's a very strong motivation for wanting to kill her husband, since he was planning on leaving her, and that he was afraid for her life because he apparently mentioned to other people that she was fucking crazy. And so the moment she disappeared, or he disappeared, people have always spread that rumor that maybe she fed him to the tigers, which I kind of doubt, but it would be amazing if that was true. Amazing in a sense.
I mean, it is a good way to dispose of a body.
That tigers have their stomach is so acidic they can burn something, even bone, down. Sure, Joe. But they don't mention the fact that her husband has connections to, I believe it was like was it the Cuban or Puerto Rican mafia?
Might have been Costa Rican, because I remember in the documentary, he was very keen on going down to Costa Rica.
Right.
It seemed like he was like making preparations to run away to Costa Rica, and that's what they kind of give you as like the alternate theory, like, oh, he ran off to Costa Rica, but then like it's like, oh, there was no flight plan, he never took off.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's dead. He's definitely dead.
It's very much so possible that, given his connections to the Costa Rican mafia, maybe Carol Baskins must have somehow tipped off the Costa Rican mafia to his exact location.
Yeah. You also look at her history and her like psychological profile. This is a woman who they mentioned was raped at a young age.
Oh, wow.
Wasn't that a thing?
I forgot about that, but it sounds familiar with her.
Yeah.
I remember she left her previous husband for this one before he disappeared.
Right, I'm pretty sure she was raped, and then she has this very contentious relationship with this husband, and then he winds up disappearing, and she gets all of his money, and then the next thing you know, she marries the fucking definition of a simp. You look up simp in the dictionary, and there should just be a picture of this guy.
Certain people would describe him as a beta male, someone, or rather, to use a less offensive term, someone who is very submissive.
He's a bitch, and she marries this bitch, and he, it just makes sense to me. It just clicks. The more and more you watch episode 3, the more you're like, I've watched true crime shows. That man is dead, and she did it.
I can't say for certain, but I know the documentary really wants you to think she did it.
She had the means. She had the motive.
She definitely had the motive. I'm not sure if she has the means, but I'll just say I won't be surprised if it turns out she did do it.
There's the whole thing with like the will and like the phrasing, like in the event of my disappearance, you know, which is unusual. I know there's just a lot. There's a lot of little details. It's like, oh, this is sketchy. It's a little sketchy.
That is true. And so she ends up having, running her own wildlife preserve, and she eventually stopped doing the whole cub petting stuff, and she is railing against other roadside zoos for cub petting, and I'm assuming she did this as an ego thing, because maybe, I don't know why, part of me likes to think that she wants to be, like Joe Exotic, she wants the spotlight on her. She wants the attention. She wants everyone to view her as this holier-than-thou individual.
That's true of a lot of these, like, PETA people. These fucking, like, oh, I must save the animals single-handedly. Like, I think they would never admit it, but I think there's a lot of ego going on in that whole world.
And she doesn't breed tigers, rather she accepts tigers from poorer, closed-down zoos, apparently.
Yeah, she's on the crazier side of the animal rights scale. There are people who are straight up just against breeding animals in captivity, period, for any reason. These kind of people would very much, their end game would be for all zoos everywhere to eventually close.
Right. Or like, I know PETA has had a horrific history of euthanizing perfectly healthy dogs, cats and dogs, because even they don't believe domesticated animals should exist at all.
Exactly.
They'll never admit it unless you bring it to their face, but I'm surprised the documentary, as much as they demonize, as much as the documentary demonizes Carol Baskins, I'm surprised they didn't do the same for PETA. Because everyone rags on PETA in real life.
These would be the same kind of crazy assholes who would see you eating honey and be like, you think it's okay that bees just work for people? Like, we're dealing with that level of crazy. Mm-hmm. So her position is we shouldn't breed these animals.
Right.
But they're going extinct in the wild. So basically she's saying, let them die. Let them go extinct.
It's a very difficult subject, because it's like, I've done some research. This is another criticism I have of the documentary series, where it's like they don't go into the specifics of the health conditions, the specific health conditions of these tigers, because they mentioned that, Joe runs a very poor, rundown zoo, but they never mention, like, these animals are riddled with a bunch of health issues. A lot of them are inbred, a lot of them are born with, like, mental disabilities, physical disabilities. Some of them are underfed or overfed. The hybrid liger animals are too big and are living a very painful existence because these are animals that shouldn't exist to begin with.
Kill me!
Yeah, exactly. They're one of the Ellen Ripley clones from Alien Resurrection. There were, what was it? The cubs, because they're deprived from their mother's milk, they're unable to grow to a healthy degree because of the lack of comfort, emotional and physical comfort from their mothers and their milk. What was it? A lot of these animals are put under a lot of massive amounts of stress. Due to the enclosed cage spaces and, constantly being petted by a bunch of strangers. And the biggest thing...
The problem is, though, that a lot of these people, and that's all terrible, but a lot of these people act like that's every zoo, or that's every, like, institution like this. They look at every zoo as if it's fucking Auschwitz for animals. And there's definitely a scale. Say what you want about Doc Antle, he's a crazy sex pervert. But from what we see in the documentary, his animals seem to be the best, like, taken care of out of the three zoos that we see. It seems like he has the most I almost said production value. That's not the right term. But you know what I mean? Like, he's
the best run zoo.
Yeah, out of the three. From what we can tell.
Of the three, yes. From what we can tell, right.
Yeah. I'm sure that guy down in Florida, God, I want a spin-off documentary about the Scarface guy. Yeah. I want to see his collection.
I know, yeah, he's got a bit of a... I'm not sure if his zoo is, like, just a private collection for himself, or if it's, like, something available for people to come in and watch.
Yeah. Who else owned big cats?
Siegfried and Lloyd?
No. Everybody knows that.
Why did I say Lloyd? Roy. Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah, one of them recently died, didn't they?
Yes, that's true. That's unfortunate.
A lot of people probably don't know this. Famous actress Tippi Hedren is one of these big cat people.
Oh, wow.
She lives with, like, tigers and lions.
And bears?
Oh, my.
But I guess, like, the biggest...
I guess she was so freaked out by the birds that she decided she would keep the cats around for protection.
Makes sense to me. But I guess, like, from the articles that I've read, the biggest detractment against breeding cubs is that even if you were to breed these endangered animals, there's no way you can release any of them in the wild, because at that point they'd either be too unhealthy to breed with wild tigers, or they are too domesticated to even survive in the wild.
That's absolutely true. But we have to face the reality that eventually the tigers in the wild are probably going to go extinct. And at that point, do we want there to still be tigers in the world, be they in captivity or not, or do we want to just allow the species to go extinct completely?
True, yes.
That's the question, really. Is it better to just let them go extinct, or to, I mean, the best case scenario would be to, prevent the ones in the wild from going extinct. But let's be honest, I don't know if that's going to happen. So at the very least, why not have some... I don't think
Captain Planet's coming in to save us, man.
So at the very least, why not have some in captivity?
Yeah, like, I guess if they were to, like, naturally breed, like, like they're supposed to once a year, I can see that. I mean, I know, like, what was it, like, I believe they breed pandas. Not breed pandas, but it's like, they let pandas breed in certain zoos, or, gorillas and all that stuff. I'm sure, like, plenty of zoos, they allow... Yeah.
If you can get them to fuck, pandas are fucking assholes. Like, we're trying to help you. Breed.
They're like the Japanese of the animal kingdom.
Right. They're like, breed, panda. You need to breed. You will die, and you won't have any children.
They keep playing Let's Get It On 24/7 to set the mood for these pandas.
Did the pandas commit some sort of crime in the past, and now they've decided to just allow themselves to go extinct, like the Hitler family?
God. So, I don't mind, for zoos to let these animals naturally breed when they can, but I feel like the approach that people like Joe Exotic and Doc Antle go towards this is definitely the wrong way to do it, especially when it's solely for profit and you're going to kill most of these cubs anyways. So it's like, I do feel like something like that should be done about it. I don't know if the Big Cat Rescue Act is the right way to do it. I don't know. And that's another criticism I have for the documentary, where it's like, it doesn't really give you most documentary, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Dylan, but most documentaries, or at least the best ones, are the ones that come up with a call to action by the end of the documentary, where it's saying, do you support our cause? Do you want to put an end to this problem? Here's what you can do.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of good documentaries do that. At the same time, though, some documentaries try to do that and they fail, and it comes across as really cringy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to be preached at, and it's sometimes, if you don't handle that sort of thing well, it can come across really sort of like sappy. So I don't know if I would agree that like the best documentaries have a call to action.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them do. I think there are also good documentaries that just end.
Okay.
They just end, and that was the story, and that's, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly the way it's done.
Do you think this documentary could have benefited from a call to action to put an end to this sort of bad treatment of animals?
I think you could have done something, maybe not in the documentary itself, but maybe in the Joel McHale episode. Maybe they could have shouted out some charities or something.
Right. Charities that aren't Big Cat Rescue.
Charities that aren't Big Cat Rescue. Charities that did not murder their husband, and feed him to tigers. Here, kitty, kitty. Love that music video, by the way. That might have been my favorite part. I don't know. Yeah, but you could have done something. One of the big criticisms here is that this documentary isn't enough about the tigers.
Right.
It's more about the people who have the tigers.
Yeah.
And I can see that, but I don't know. I think the people with the tigers are more interesting than the tigers a little bit.
Probably, yeah. But I feel like it would have.
There are a lot of tiger documentaries out there.
But are any of them have the massive amount of exposure as Tiger King?
No, I tell you another thing that I wish they went into more detail about.
Yeah.
Because I've done a little research into this story afterwards. Cool. Is this whole Zanesville incident? Zanesville, Ohio.
Yeah. The guy who. Okay, I'll let you explain.
So this guy in Ohio.
This fucking guy.
This guy. I think it was in Ohio. With all the corn. He had one of these exotic cat places. And one day, goes off a little crazier than usual, and he kills himself and lets out all the animals.
Brilliant.
A
brilliant performance, Dylan.
And then there's like these fucking...
Walken would be proud.
The key is not to say everything up here, because sometimes Walken goes down here, and he starts to do an aggressive whisper. And then he goes back up. No, but then you have these 911 calls where they're like, "There's a fucking tiger on the interstate right now," and the cops are like, "Yeah," we've gotten like 7 calls about this already. Like, it's insane. And I want to somebody needs to make a documentary about that now. I want to know everything.
Right. And like, why did he let out the tigers? Was he like going to be like was he going to go bankrupt and he'd had this like fuck it moment before offing himself?
Yeah, I think the guy was just really mentally unstable. Imagine.
What would he be doing with a bunch of tigers then?
Imagine one of these big cat people being mentally unstable. Can you imagine that?
What's up with that?
What's the deal with tiger people? I can even almost understand lions, because usually if you raise up a lion, because there's all those videos online like, she nursed this lion cub back to health 20 years ago and he still remembers her, and then she like comes into the zoo and the lion like hugs her. Like, it seems like lions like form bonds early on and then they kind of hold on to those bonds. A tiger will just kill you. They don't care.
Right. It's like tigers are like cats. One day they'll treat you like they're your best friend, and the other times they'll just scratch the shit out of your arm.
This is the relationship that all exotic animal people have with their animals. You know, it's always like, oh, I love him. He's the best cat that ever. Oh shit, you know.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, several people, like I've seen videos from several YouTubers who work with wild animals like tigers at zoos, and they've mentioned how these tigers are kind of like little kids, or like emotional little kids, where their behavior would switch on a dime, where they'll be like super calm, but it's like the moment you do anything to frighten them or harm them or scare them or harm them, they'll just go berserk right then and there. And that's why they can never be 100% fully domesticated.
That fucking well, not for a long time. You know, you would have to breed them and make them more docile through selective breeding, and it would take a long ass time. I mean, that's what we did with that's what our ancestors did with wolves. You know,
right? And I guess eventually cats.
Right. So, yeah. No, but, shit, what was I going to say? I had a point and then it flew out of my brain.
Something about the tigers and then breeding and taking care of the tigers. No, the guy who killed himself and released the hounds, or the tigers in this case.
Right. No, we were talking about, like, the animal's behavior and how it switches on a dime,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
That video... You know, one of the most thrilling parts of the documentary is when that fucking liger almost eats Joe Exotic.
Yes.
It just grabs him by the shoe and just
just because he was just very curious about the smell of that shoe.
He didn't even try to drag him. He just went, like, I mean, Joe's not a big guy anyway. This fucking giant animal. It's like, I'll shoot you between the eyes, you bitch.
Get. He's back. They never explained why he's walking around with a crutch, or like that Batman, like, was it Dark Knight Return style leg brace?
Yeah.
But he's like, he has
his... tried to fucking kill me. They put perfume on my shoes. And then Carol Baskins is like, well, if you were going to kill him, you would put, like, sardine oil. It's something the cat wants to eat. I'm like, did you bathe your husband in sardine oil, Kara?
How would you know?
What an oddly specific suggestion.
Or imagine with Doc Antle, it's like, you need to pay $100,000 to get someone to kill someone. How do you know, Doc?
Suddenly that woman
if that's your real name. Which
next thing we know, we find out that woman who left his zoo has been found dead under mysterious circumstances.
Oh my god!
You're like, Can you imagine?
Yeah.
If that happened now too, that would be like big news.
Oh, totally. Yeah, like these people, if they were ever involved in some shady shit, they cannot afford to do any more of that said shady shit, with the whole world potentially looking down on them with a microscope the moment this pandemic is over.
They can't afford they can't afford to get caught. Yeah. Wow. It's so ironic, you know, Joe is finally famous and he's in fucking prison.
He can't enjoy any of it.
Because of Carol fucking Baskins.
Unless there's some like people in prison who is like, I raped the Tiger King. I'm gonna be famous.
I have no doubt that even though he's in prison, he's seen it. I know that prisoners will sneak in like phones and iPads and shit, and they'll watch Netflix in their cells. This is a pretty common thing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like 100% sure that Joe has definitely seen this documentary. So
yeah,
I wonder what he thinks.
It's like I've seen Orange Is the New Black. I've seen how they sneak shit in.
Yeah. I just imagine, you know what Joe is in prison? I imagine he's the white version of the booty warrior from the Boondocks. You know, just walking up to you, you watch porn.
Now I like you and I want you. Now we gonna do this the easy way or the hard way. Doesn't matter to me. The choice is yours. I'm a warrior.
You like to see them big dicks or them small?
Well, I guess you ain't as straight as you think you are.
Oh, I know who you are, Chris Hansen. See, I called you Chris Hansen.
Oh, God. I guess like the last person to talk about would probably be Jeff Lowe, who's probably
Yeah.
he's
We talk about this. We talk about this being a tale of three big cat places, but Jeff Lowe is really sort of the fourth main character who comes in later on. There's always a point in these documentaries that feels like we're like this new guy rolls into town and like, ooh, what's gonna happen, And Jeff Lowe is definitely that for this story.
Right. So, I guess halfway into the documentary series, Joe Exotic, he runs this like a slander campaign, using copyrighted images of Big Cat Rescue, going so far as to make his own Big Cat Rescue organization with the exact same logo just to make them look bad, and so. Also, so he can get the first search results on the website when people search up Big Cat Rescue. He gets sued by Carol Baskins and her beta male of a husband, and they win, and he owes Carol Baskins, he owes the Baskins a shit ton of money that he's unable to pay. So he brings in his supposedly rich millionaire friend, Jeff Lowe, to help him out financially by passing over the zoo over to him. Oh, and before he did that, I forgot to mention that he put all all the paperwork involving the zoo under his parents' name, so his parents have to pay a good portion of the money, and then he's constantly pushing the ownership of the money of the zoo from person to person, to thinking that he can avoid paying the Baskins a single dollar or a single dime. Right. When
he dissolves the company that he had in his dead brother's name.
Right.
He has this whole sob story. The reason it's called GW Zoo is that it's named after his brother, who supposedly had a dream about opening a cat place, and then he died. That's the story and he's sticking to it. So that's what we know about it.
Right.
But apparently he dissolved that corporation and opened a new one under Jeff Lowe's name. Yes. Basically to fuck over Carol's lawyers. And I think that's illegal, actually. I don't think you're allowed to do that when you're in the midst of a lawsuit.
Not. Yeah. But somehow he did it. And so now I think Jeff...
Maybe Oklahoma law is a little different on that point. I don't know.
I'm not sure. But Jeff Lowe is someone who also comes from a very shady business. I guess he tends to do these sorts of... I forgot what exactly he does, but he's definitely some sort of a con man. He at one point got arrested for nearly strangling his ex-wife to death. He's certainly a playboy. He's someone with an open relationship, and he uses a little pussy to get a lot of pussy.
Yeah, what is the correlation between big cats, people, and
sex?
No, but specifically like polygamy, like polyamory, like open relationships, all that shit. Why is everyone a sex pervert who owns a tiger?
I guess people
or a murderer.
I guess it's like the song. It's like the Tears for Fears song. Everybody wants to rule the world, and I guess having a tiger gives you access to having it all. Some people want it all, my friend.
I guess it's because a little pussy gets you a lot of pussy. I guess it's because tigers apparently are chick/dude magnets.
It's a power symbol. It's like, hey, look at me. I've got myself this wild, dangerous animal seemingly under my control, and people will see like, oh wow, he's got that fucking tiger under his control. He looks like a powerful figure I want to fuck.
Yeah. Maybe we should all get tigers. And sneak them into hotel rooms in a fucking suitcase.
Or have like run ourselves go to Las Vegas, hook up with David and start a business, like that failed business like they did, where they have like buses that transport people from club to club or bar to bar with tigers.
Yeah, I bet he didn't get... I wonder, because he said, that was a big mistake. I wonder what happened. They never elaborated on what went wrong with that business plan. Because it sounds cool.
I think it
sounds like a cool idea. I know for a fact that people would pay big money to do that.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like a good business proposition, but then he's like, that was a big mistake. He probably didn't get, like, a permit that he needed.
Yeah. Especially with the tigers on board.
Yeah, I'm sure there was something legally that he fucked up, and...
Yeah.
It was probably just way more complicated than he thought it was going to be.
Right. But anyways, yeah, he brought in, Joe brought in Jeff Lowe. Jeff Lowe now has the zoo under his ownership and starts. It was a battle of egos. It was Joe versus Jeff, and Jeff brought in his guy, and that was the guy that Joe eventually paid for him to kill Carol fucking Baskins, and
that bitch.
And so. He was slowly taking control, and Joe was getting more and more erratic. He was getting more erratic.
He was getting more and more erotic.
Holy fuck, is this wrong?
I actually thought you were about to say he was getting more and more exotic. Joe was getting more and more exotic.
Well, he was getting more erratic with his behavior. He was going, this is a guy who loves to be in control and on top of things, seemingly on top of things. And so when that sort of delusion...
Or maybe he likes to be on bottom of things. I don't presume to know what he does in the bedroom, and I don't care to.
Outside of his sex life, when it comes to public perception, he wants to be on top of things. And so Jeff Lowe was definitely ruining that image. And it's possible with the death of Travis, Joe must have gone off the deep end, and that's when he decided to perhaps potentially go for that whole presidential governor thing.
I imagine that this hypothetical jail version of Joe that we've concocted. He's like, I've changed my name to Joe Erotic.
I'm the erotic warrior.
I find it very erotic. What? Erotic?
Futurama reference?
That was a Futurama reference.
Good.
Love Zap Brannigan. And then Kif pulls out the broom.
So what was it? With Jeff Lowe, he was turning things around for better or for worse, probably for worse. And
my favorite cliffhanger in this entire fucking season, because almost every episode ends on some crazy cliffhanger, is at the end of, I guess, the 4th episode or 5th, whenever he came in, where at first it's he comes in, everything seems great, and then they just end the episode with so what happened when Jeff came? And Saf just goes, he stole the zoo. I'm like, what?
Everything changed when the Lowe Nation attacked.
I'm like, why isn't this the movie now? Just make a heist movie about him stealing the zoo. There's that movie, We Bought a Zoo. We Stole the Zoo.
You can definitely say that. No, if Nicolas Cage is playing Joe Exotic, who would you imagine to play Jeff Lowe?
Oh God, who would be good?
I kind of want Vincent D'Onofrio. I don't know why. He's the first guy on my list, on my mind.
You have to lose a lot of weight.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. He doesn't seem like... Jeff Lowe doesn't seem like that. He's in very good shape to begin with.
He's not in good shape, but he's not fat either. I don't know what he's hiding under all those Affliction t-shirts, but...
And bandanas and hat caps.
Yeah. I'm just picturing different actors in the gear, trying to think,
Yeah.
Maybe a Woody Harrelson, or...
Maybe, yeah. Although I kind of would imagine him as Tim Stark.
Sure. Who would play Doc Antle? D'Onofrio should play Doc Antle.
Yes, okay, that would be good.
Yeah. Holy shit.
He looks a little bit like Doc Antle in Jurassic World.
Yeah, I want to see this version of the movie that we're pitching right now. Why are we not funding this?
Because we have no money, Dylan.
That's a good reason. But neither did Joe, and he had 187 tigers, so what are we doing wrong?
Right. And I guess the other guy, the major player, or sort of a pseudo major player, was, I think it was James something. It was the guy that the feds went to initially, and then it's he got in touch with Jeff Lowe, and Jeff Lowe got in touch with his guy.
The fat guy, yeah.
Fat guy, yeah. It's they mentioned I had this lemur without a permit, and that's why the feds were after me. It's I'm sure it kind of sure it was more than that. It's kind of funny, they give everybody.
I love that guy. He's one of my favorite characters because he just comes in screws everybody over, and then rides into the sunset on his jet ski.
I was wondering, like, what was up with the jet ski? What purpose did that serve?
I'm like, why don't you just go all the way with it and play fucking Back in Black in the background as he's riding off into the sunset on this jet ski?
I love it. It's like, hey, turn that camera off for a second, and then cut to him on the jet ski and have this like epic, in his mind, close-up shot of him like staring at the camera, removing his sunglasses. He's like, oh yeah.
Like, am I watching CSI Miami all of a sudden? Like, what's happening? What's happening to our planet?
Oh, many things, my friends, and Tiger King is just a symptom of it.
Everybody loses their minds.
But he was an interesting person. I love how, like, every time he's introduced, each person has a subtitle as to their role in the story. And under James, whatever his name is, it's always businessman.
Yes, what kind of business, I wonder.
Yeah, I think he's probably someone who's like an entrepreneur who does businesses in terms of opening up strip clubs and bars, perhaps. I mean, I think there was footage of him at a strip club at one point.
And then on the weekends, he dresses up as a ghost to scare kids away from his counterfeiting operation.
So yeah, and so with Jeff Lowe, he's someone that like nobody likes. Everybody who works with him ends up hating him after a while. He's someone with who makes himself appear to be someone with a lot of money, only to reveal that he doesn't have any money and makes his partners pay up like the majority, if not all, of the business.
Yeah, and yet he might be the most sane person on the show.
At least he's probably the smartest person.
And what does that say?
I don't know. It says a lot about humanity, my friend. When it's like when someone as big of a piece of shit as Jeff Lowe can come out as like somewhat the most decent person,
and when the
person who previously strangled his ex-wife,
and the most level-headed person in the documentary is the one who said, "Yeah, go ahead and cut the arm off." Like, what?
Right. Or the guy with no legs.
Yeah, that was a fun story when he told us about how he lost the legs.
Yeah, it was like a ziplining accident.
Yeah.
And then
that's just one more reason for me to never go fucking ziplining. Jesus.
Yeah.
Between this and that episode of South Park, I will never zipline.
What was it? Oh yeah, okay. So after like everyone puts everyone works together to put Joe Exotic in jail. It kind of shows that like the story is not over not over quite yet, and that Joe Exotic is planning on throwing everyone under the bus because he's like, I'm gonna die I got 22 years in jail. I'm gonna die in here anyways. Fuck it. And
yeah, in the ultimate twist of fate, at the very end, Joe Exotic goes, well, I've been royally fucked. So, fuck everybody. And he fucking gets in contact with PETA, of all people. And this is when he lost me. Not when he attempted to murder Carol Baskin. Not when he fed meth to people. It was when he went back on his convictions.
Uh-huh.
His shitty convictions. That I was finally like, oh, I'm not on your side anymore there, Joe.
The moment where he's kind of doing decent stuff now by ratting out the people who kill baby tigers. That's the part where he loses you.
Yeah, because he's being a hypocrite at that point.
Yeah, of course. I know he's definitely, and he's not doing this for any, even he may claim it's like, there's these people doing these awful things, and I'm gonna put a stop to it. It's like, that's not the reason why you're doing this. You're doing this just to get revenge.
Right. And listen, I'm one of these people, when I watch Breaking Bad, I am completely on Walter White's side the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you get me on a character's side, I'm a ride or die motherfucker. I'm like, fuck his wife and fuck his disabled son. Walter White has the right idea here. And that's only after the show you've watched all of it and you sort of get separated from it for a while that I can go like, hey, he's kind of an asshole. Like, while I'm in it, I'm fucking in it.
For me, the point where Walter White lost me was when he ended up accidentally killing the one guy I liked, whose name is blanking out on me.
Oh, the cop guy?
Not the cop guy or Fat Bruce.
Damn it, Marie, they're minerals.
The other guy with the bald guy who is also in the old guy who's also in Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah, that was sad because I really liked him too.
Yeah, now it's really bothering me as to who that character's name is.
He lost a lot of people at the end of season 2 when he killed Jesse's girlfriend, but I hated that bitch, so I was okay with it.
It especially hurts now. It especially hurts now knowing that that actress went on to play Jessica Jones. Okay, Mike. It was Mike. That's his name. Mike.
That's right. It's what's her name? The Ritter girl. What's her name? Something Ritter. Is she related to John Ritter? I wonder.
I don't know. Let me see. Just quickly doing this while being recorded for a podcast.
Yeah, we're way off topic. I'm sorry.
Kristen Ritter, that's her name.
I didn't mean to turn this into a Breaking Bad, but we can't talk about Breaking Bad on the show. We've both seen it. I haven't seen El Camino yet. That's a potential episode. Back to Tiger King. Murder, mayhem, and madness.
Yes. Okay. So when it comes to to the story of Tiger King, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm actually kind of hoping that maybe a year or two down the line, we could get a follow-up as to what's going to happen. Again, there are so many YouTubers already that are making videos. It's like, where are they now? Sort of videos. But I could like to think that, in the words of Spill.com's Let's Do This podcast, the saga continues, my friend. And it seems like a lot of shit may be happening in the near future. At least once this pandemic is over and the dust settles.
Yeah. I want to see more developments. I want to see more raids, police raids. I want to see what's going on inside of Scarface's compound. I want to see them test that meat grinder.
That was another thing. There's so much crazy shit that happens in this documentary, but one of the biggest ones where it's like the Alligator Exhibit. So Rick Kirkham.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. Who do you think did it?
I think it was Joe.
See, I'm not sure.
Because he's killed his own animals before, remember that. So I can bet you he's willing to sacrifice his alligators just so he can burn all the footage so that Rick Kirkham can't make a show of Joe Exotic in which Joe gets none of the royalties or gets none of the ownership.
I think there's a slight chance that it might have been one of these crazy animal rights people.
Uh-huh.
But
why that building in particular? Good question. But
yeah, there is definitely a motive there.
Yeah. So for you, you're dead set on believing that Carol fucking Baskins did it. I'm dead set on that Joe did it.
Sure. I think that's a strong possibility. I'm not 100% convinced, but at the same time, I'm like 95.
So yeah, that is just one more convoluted chapter in this story. So I guess to sort of wrap, would you like to wrap things up with overall statements, unless there's something else you want to mention from Tiger King?
I'm trying to think. Have we missed anything?
I'm sure we missed a lot of things, but I feel like we've covered the majority of it all.
The rabbit killing shit, like.
Oh yeah, where he tries to. I mentioned that was part of like his slander campaign to ruin Big Cat Rescue's reputation, even though these rabbits were simply made to feed the tigers.
Yeah. Oh, so you want to save the big cats, but you don't give a shit about the rabbits, hey, Carol? Hey, Baskins? Why fucking kill the rabbits anyway? If you really want to raise these tigers free range and give them an experience as close as you can to them being in the wild, just fucking release the rabbit in their cage and let them go at it. T-Rex doesn't want to be fed, he wants to hunt. Can't suppress millions of years of evolution.
Oh boy. Yeah, I feel like Tiger King, honestly, for me at least, is like the gift that keeps on giving. And I'm totally aware that it is not for everyone. I totally get it. If you bail out, if this is, in a way, yes, I would say this does sort of glorify these horrible, horrible people to an extent, you know, putting them on a pedestal saying, hey, these are fucked up individuals, but these are like the most fucked up individuals you've ever heard of. So again, putting them on
it's a bit of a freak show, you know.
Yeah, and it's exploiting.
Like,
it's definitely exploitative in nature, I would say.
Kind of like Honey Boo Boo times a million.
Right. So
with a healthy dose of murder.
Potential murder. No, yeah, there's definitely murder here, at least in terms of animal murder.
Animal murder? Millionaire murder? Millionaire murder? Question mark?
So it's, yeah, I totally get this is not for everybody. But, you know, obviously there's a reason why this became the most talked about thing in the last couple of months since the pandemic started. And, yeah, I can definitely see why, you know, Netflix is banking, trying to capitalize on this any way they could. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they start selling, like, Tiger King t-shirts.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think that made this a success, and why I think this would have been a success regardless of the pandemic, although that certainly didn't hurt, I think our generation in particular, you know, the internet generation, the first generation that grew up with the internet,
yeah,
we have a fascination with, like, insane people who have little to no, what's the word I'm looking for? Little to no self-awareness of how like, think, you know, Tommy Wiseau, Neil Breen, you know, Joe Exotic, Derek Savage.
Ooh, yeah, he's a big one.
Steven Seagal. These are all crazy fucking people who just seem to give zero fuck, and they're just so unself-aware they don't realize what they're doing. And it's always fascinating to watch, isn't it?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. I guess, like, it's, you know, most of these people tend to be, like, boomer or near boomer age, who are not used to being put under heavy scrutiny by the younger, you know, millennial individuals. But I would say, like, you could say the same for, like, someone like Billy McFarlane in the case of the Fire Festival. Sure.
Or do you remember a few years ago? Did you ever hear about the scandal, the TanaCon thing?
Yes, oh my god, I remember that got canceled because there were too many people.
Yeah, and they were, like, standing outside for hours, and people were, like, getting sun poisoning and shit.
Right, holy shit, man, yeah, and then, like, Shane Dawson made a documentary about that, because I guess that's what he does now.
That was almost exactly the Firefest thing, just again, and on the mainland. Like, there was, like, a shady business dude. This time it was, like, that little blonde kid on the fucking, what do you call those things? Segway?
Right,
Segway guy.
I remember that, yeah, oh my god. It's kind of crazy how fast time moves in internet time, because, like, that feels like so long ago now, even though I'm sure it was, like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
It must have been, like, 2017, 2018, something like that.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Is Tana Mongo, Monjo, Mojo, Jojo? Is she even relevant these days? I don't know.
I don't know. I never watched Tana Mongoose. If it wasn't for this thing that happened, I wouldn't even know about her, you know?
Right. I probably wouldn't have known about her if it wasn't for iDubbbz and his Content Cop series.
iDubbbz, and that's great. When it goes up to her at the convention.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that
word.
Yeah, and, like, all the H3 coverage of when that shit was happening.
Yeah. Oh boy. But anyways, man. So
yeah, Tiger King connection. She also handed out condoms.
Oh my! You're right. Oh boy. So anyways, yes, it's these
bringing it all back around.
These sort of train wrecks I love looking into. I don't know what kind of person that makes me. Does it make me a horrible person? I don't know. But
no, they're fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why we call them train wrecks, because you cannot look away from them. For some people, they're immediately turned off to them. For me, it's like, you know that meme with Lisa Simpson with that, like, that satisfying look on her face as she's getting more coffee. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's the good shit right there." That's me right there.
Yeah. if you're new to the world of train wrecks, if you enjoyed Tiger King, I was like, what more can I watch? Anything the Internet Historian posts.
Yes.
Go find out about Rainforest. That's a fun time.
Oh boy, yeah. Rainforest, Fire Festival,
DashCon.
DashCon, that's a big one. Fucking G-Fest. Speaking of people of old boomer types who are in over their heads.
Oh boy.
But that's a time for that's a story for another time that I don't think I'll ever be able to talk about. So
and the Shia LaBeouf stuff. Like
the Shia LaBeouf stuff, yes.
Oh, that was good. That was good times.
Totally, man. So, anyways, I guess we should wrap this up. Do you, Dillion McCandless, fully endorse Tiger King murder, mayhem, and madness?
It's a funny thing to throw your name behind, isn't it?
Yeah.
And say, I endorse this. I endorse all of this. But that's exactly what I'm saying. This is fascinating. It's not perfect. You can sit there and nitpick it all day. Like,
yeah.
You can sit here and nitpick it all day. Oh, well, they didn't show this. They didn't show that.
Oh, they misrepresented this character here. They made her look too much like the bad guy. It's this misogynistic. It's like,
they didn't tell us enough about the plight of the tigers. And why was that monkey only in one scene? Like you could go over and over for days. This is a trashy show about trashy people. It's a sick world we're living in.
It's a sick world we live in with sick people.
We're living in a society, but all of that aside,
these people like heroes.
But aside from all that, it's just fun to watch for me, and for you, and for anyone who enjoys, this sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So if you're like us and you would like to prepare for pain, then check it out.
And this is what I meant to say at the very beginning of this podcast. Take everything with a grain of salt, as with all documentaries, really. Most of them, at least.
Sure.
Yep, absolutely. So,
hashtag Carol did it. Hashtag test the meat grinder. Hashtag.
So, what are we going to be talking about next time, Dylan?
Well, I'm going to be introducing Andres to some Asian cinema that for which he is not familiar. He knows all about them Japanese monsters and robots. But we're going to get into the world of martial arts, and we're going to get into it with the greatest who ever lived, Bruce Lee, when we cover Enter the Dragon.
Oh boy.
So that's going to be a lot of fun. Tune in for that if you want to.
Hopefully. And
hope they don't hit each other too hard.
So I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir.
And I've been Super 64.
And until next time, everybody, take care. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly the way it's been.
Bitch!
Thanks to that bitch Carol fucking Baskins!